The first step on the road to the World Championship heads into its final rounds. Today, from the virtual Nürburgring, drivers head to the penultimate round of the 2022 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup qualifying series. Hello everyone, and as always, welcome to RaceSpotTV and welcome to the road to the World Championship. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted for the first time since round one to not be by myself. Alongside is the program manager for esports at Porsche, Marius Gollenbach, who's got plenty of virtual driving under his belt as well. Do remember live timing and scoring available at RaceSpot.tv/timing, powered by our friends at ATVO. Marius, it's a delight to have you aboard. It's been a very interesting qualifying series, and now we head into the Eifel Mountains and to another peculiar layout of a familiar venue.
Thank you so much, Arjuna. It's great to be back. It's been so long since I've been on one of those really for an entire race, and I've followed the season. It's been great, and it's now really starting to wrap up. So this is round 5 of 6, and I think we're going to see another great race today.
We were just talking before we went on air about some of the future for these drivers. We'll talk about that once the racing gets underway. For now, let's talk about the journey these drivers are going on. Of course, remember, at the end of 2022 in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup, Diogo Pinto crowned your world champion, but the top 15 knew they had nothing else to do for the rest of the year. They could watch on and see the drivers scrap it out to compete in 2023. Drivers 16th through 30th have to fight in the Contenders Series, which will start in just over a month's time, while the final 5 drivers were bumped down to the qualifying series with the rest of the hopefuls. In 7 days' time, 15 will rise as Porsche contenders, knowing they're one step closer to their World Championship dreams. But of course, the Contender Series will be difficult. Marius, these drivers fight in a 30-minute race tonight. Of course, through the Contender Series, they get used to the World Championship format with a shorter sprint race and then a top 8 invert before the longer feature race.
Yeah, it's a slow start if you think about it. So you start with just one race here, which is incredibly a lot of pressure really put on these guys. But then once they jump into the Contender Series, everything is sort of back to normal. So you have the 2 races, you have the invert of the top 8 between the sprint and the main, and they get a first glance of what it's like to be in the Super Cup. But then again, Arjuna, we talked about tracks briefly before the broadcast start. It's going to be very interesting because these 6 tracks are going to be run one by one with their configurations in the Contender Series.
Yeah, I think myself, when I saw the schedule for this qualifying series, I said, okay, familiar venues, unfamiliar layouts. When they get to the Contender Series, we'll have the familiar layout of the familiar venues. But no, it's going to give a slight advantage to these qualifying series drivers, but the advantage in race format, of course, will go to those that have competed in the top step of iRacing competition. Here's a look at the top 20 as they're scored right now. It's close in that cutoff bubble with just 2 points separating a driver we've never seen before in this top split, Hugo Deschamps, and Andre Melchers, who's befallen onto some terrible luck in the last couple of weeks. It is the Fire Sim Sport duo that are looking good with Lasse back and Kevin Nielsen. Of course, these points, Marius, include the 1 drop weeks that drivers get. 1 opportunity to have a misstep and forget about it and re-go 7 days afterwards.
Yeah, you'd think that, and there is 1 drop week, which is special about the whole qualifying series. This actually includes 1 drop week, so out of the 6 rounds you run, the lowest scored result will get dropped, which means you kind of have a little bit of wiggle room. When you get 1 bad round in, you can still recover. However, many of these guys have not put a foot wrong yet, and then obviously that strengthens your whole position in the series. And it gets more interesting because we're also talking different splits. We're showing the first split tonight, but there's a second and a third split tonight as well. And these guys are also scoring a lot of points, and they come in clutch for the championship.
So left side are the top 10. A couple of them we haven't seen before. Kevin Nielsen, of note, won split 2 in the first round of the qualifying series. After that, we've seen him in the top split. But Bryn Collins, the young Welshman, brother of Charlie Collins for Coanda Simsport, is in 6th. Elvis Rankin, the 15-year-old for Apex Racing Team, he runs in 7th. On the right hand of your screen, Miranda Deschamps, Penn, sorry, though, trying to figure out which of the names that we haven't seen. Leon Penn of Pure Sims, the final one that we have not seen over the course of this qualifying series. But of course, this is when the pressure starts to build, as drivers know just 2 races are left to stamp their mark on the championship. So qualifying gets underway with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock. It's the Kova Esports number 12 of Oskari Rene that sits on pole position, and Michael Rachel in 2nd, with Oscar Mangan in 3rd. Qualifying here is always difficult, especially with the slower chicane that we've got, Marius. You've got to get the car slowed down in time.
Yeah, and there's a couple of quick times coming in here. Oskari with another improvement onto the second position now. And Valentin Mandanach actually crossing the line now, 126.1. So we see a lot of improvements here. And like you said, it's really important to get the car slowed down. It's not one of the easier cars to do that. There's very little assistance, but also very little you can do with the setup here. So you really have to rely on your experience, your practice as a driver to nail these lines into the chicane, into turn one. Once you lock up a wheel, your lap's almost over before it even started.
It might be the third pole position in 5 rounds for Lasse Bak if it holds it as it is. Mandanach also quick in qualifying with 300 splitting the top 2, 900 splitting the top 3. You have to go all the way back to 22nd spot to find a driver separated by half a second from your pole position time. As always, qualifying is crucial. Still 3 drivers left to go, with David Bosga in the Williams Academy car in 27th, Michael Yanni in the Apex Academy car 28th, and Alexei Nesov up there in points, but already having used one of his drop weeks, building to the chicane to finish lap number 1.
So Lasse Bak, you mentioned it, he's on pole again. We'll see if somebody can beat him, but it's also one of these guys who ran the Porsche series before, who ran the Contender series before, but also it's a name we remember from the Cayman series back when we used to run that. So it's really interesting to see that he's had no issues adapting to the 992 model of the Cup car. But also, Arjuna, we see the times at the top, they're getting closer and closer together. And we're looking at a 126.1 from Lasse Bak here, as Alexei Nesov is currently completing his lap. And if you look all the way down to almost the last row, these guys are still doing 1 minute 26 lap times.
It's crazy. The pressure is always intense. There's only one driver with a 1/10 of a second gap to that in front of him. As Alexander Laritsin, the gap is exactly a 1/10 of a second. I was always terrible in qualifying, but I would not like to be in this sort of a pressure cooker of a situation, especially knowing that the further back you are, I personally think, Marius, this is the most danger we've had into turn 1 all season long.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can't really afford to start all the way back. Again, looking at the Contender Series and the Super Cup, you can kind of recover from a bad qualifying result. When you get that, you still have the top 8 invert, so even a mid-pack position will get you up there. Here, if you're out of the top 10, if you're maybe in 15th, you might not even have put in a bad lap, but it's just not enough to get in these front rows. And like you said, come turn 1, you really don't want to be in the mid-pack, stuck in the potential danger zone when somebody even just loses the car ahead and you can't really do anything to avoid that. No, you need to nail qualifying to really get a decent set of points here. And like we mentioned before, second split isn't necessarily a lot less points like this. So guys like Bryn Collins, who you might recall his brother is racing the Porsche Esports Heuer Supercup, finished 5th last year. Bryn has actually been running the second split almost exclusively, and he is currently far up in points since he's been doing an excellent job there. So it really comes down to what your performance will be, and it doesn't really matter where you run in the split, but you need to be far up ahead in qualifying.
Agreed, and specifically for Alexei Nesov, call him out 28th in qualifying, already having used one of the drop weeks. He's not racing at home, he's on holiday at a Turkish iRacing member's home, racing on a G27. So whatever points he can get today, he will take them. He will be very grateful to leave the Eifel Mountains with something resembling a result under his belt. But with qualifying done, it is time to run you down through the starting grid for the penultimate round of the 2022 Porsche Tag Car Esports Supercup qualifying series. And for the third time in 5 races, it's the Fire Simsport machine of Lasse Bak that will bring us to the green. What a drive from him in the 126.157 lap time, with Valentin Mandanach to his outside. 2 drivers looking good in qualifying points. Gustavo Ariel came up on top last time out. It was an emotional victory for the number 2 machine. He'll line up inside of Andre Melchers, looking to build some points and work his way back into the top 15. Kevin Nielsen, Oskari Rene right behind them. Matthias Stokeback and Damon Wood share row 4, with Luca Kita and Juan Blainart making up the top 10. Matthias Jensen, Moritz Lohner 11th and 12th positions. Dylan Burst and Simona Maria Marcheno line up in 13th and 14th, while running from 15th we'll see the Door Esports number 28 of Michael Rochelle, Michael Yanni to his right hand side. Luke Bennett, Oscar Mangan, row 9. Luke Bennett needs a win tonight. He's got some work to do from 17th. Lauren Benzo, Camille Grabowski 19th and 20th. The Williams Esports Ben Q-Car back in the Porsche qualifying series. Kake Oliveira, Jeremy Lemire miss out on the top 20, with Neto Nascimento and Alexander Laritsin sharing row number 12. While rounding out our field of cars, Mads Johansson, David Bosgaard, Jerzy Glack, Alexei Nesov and Gunmin Kim make up the 29 cars. Any surprises in this qualifying order?
I wouldn't say surprises, but like you mentioned, guys like Andre Melchers, 16th in standings right now. He's put in a good job in qualifying, in 4th position, so let's see what he can do here tonight.
These are those tense moments when the drivers wait for the field to be on the grid, for the lights to build, and for the engines to roar. For drivers like Bennett, desperation will start to set in from Mandenok. The knowledge, that consistency will see them rise as contenders in 7 days' time. The engines build, we're ready to race in the Eiffel Mountains. It's a great start from back, not such a great start from Mandenok. A couple of cars going defensive on the run down into turn number 1 with Gustavo Ariel looking to fight for the race lead. Mandenok swarmed as now looks to hold on to 3rd position. It is nice and tidy, even with some 3-4 wide moments though through turn number 1. The field goes into the arena.
Yeah, a little spin back in the field. I think that was Michael Rechel. Just a little tap from Luke Bennett, but overall a very clean start if you consider Nürburgring turn 1. Another bit of smoke up ahead, but looking good and exiting the Mercedes arena without further trouble.
Oliveira around for the 3rd time this series. Through the shortcut they go, through the right that plunges down, then builds back up as they rejoin the regular track. Shortcuts about half the facility. Luritzen, Lemire, more trouble for them. It was a nice tidy turn 1. It started to devolve after that. Some separation building as the top 4 start to break away. Damon Woods feeling the pressure. Rene right behind.
There's a couple of new names to this series, so it's really interesting to see what they do. Damon Woods, one of them, now being chased by Oskari Rinne. You really don't want to lose that draft to the guys ahead. It is incredibly strong. It can really help you avoid any mistakes, and that's the commentator's curve striking right here as Damon Woods spins into the chicane. Oskari Rinne could not avoid that. That is once again bad luck for the Finn here, losing a bunch of positions, has the car damaged both front and rear, and I'm afraid that's a lot of points lost for him as we go back on to start-finish, completing the first lap.
Oof, and look at some of the jockeying behind as the top 4 well and truly have broken away. The damaged Kova machine of Rene still in the middle of the track and trying to figure out what he can do with the car. Jensen trying to look to the inside. To his outside will go Marcheno as they dive through the corner. Bit more contact. We'll see Dylan Burse almost go upside down. They hold on to it, still fighting 3 wide. It's Marcheno that now finds himself in the middle. Crazy, crazy stuff. Of course, Oscar Mangan in his new Altus colors fighting as well. Lots of these drivers realizing that if they are this far back in the pack and they get damaged, it doesn't really matter. They've already lost the draft of those in front as Bennett forces the Vendevar car off wide. Stoke back, loops it on the power.
And Mangan with a clutch move. We've seen him far down the order last time as well, and he's made up, I think, 15, 16 positions, and he started in 18th, and he's made up another couple of positions right here as he comes in clutch, takes the inside and takes both Bennett and Birse after the mistake out of the Mercedes arena. Now let's see if he can catch up, and he said it, the top 4 are actually broken free, and that's the exact thing you'd want here from a start. Some mistake behind, some kind of shuffling around, and you do get a little bit of a break, and you can kind of develop your own race and collect a lot of points, even though you have to maybe concede 1 position up ahead.
Mangan with a bit of a mistake through the chicane opened the door for Bennett to come to the inside, who's been aggressive already. Will continue to fight. Benzo will try and follow through as well, as we also see those race leaders, 4 drivers who have been ultra consistent over the course of this qualifying series. It's going to get more chaotic at the back. I was kind of hoping that we'd have a race where we could talk to Marius about the various things going on in the world of Porsche, but 3 wide into turn 1, it's Benzo that gets 2 in 1, has to slow it down in time. 2 cars get the ramp off the corner, Mangan back to where he was, Bennett with contact, that's his hopes of qualifying in the bin.
Yeah, and that just shows how easy it can be. He comes out of the first corner in the middle. Guy on the left moves to the right. Mangan on the inside, and Bennett is stuck out as the unlucky 3rd in that battle right there. But Mangan, once again, with the undercut, takes back his position and is now looking to gain back to the guys in front, where there's another 2 wide going on. That's between Oskari Rinne in the damaged Kova car. Michael Janney with a little bit of damage on the rear, as you can see here, from Simone Marceno, who is our camera car. And Marceno also looking to gain a lot of positions. He only started in 14th, and he's one of these guys who really starts to qualify in. Currently in 5th in the championship, but definitely not locked his position in for the series.
He puts in a lot of effort in practice. He wants to see it pay off. Rene holding on with a very damaged car will allow Marcheno the opportunity to fire it down the inside of Yanni, then makes contact with the Kova car, who's still struggling. 3 wide again as they work off the chicane. Marcheno will get 2 in the space of 1 corner. Now fighting around the outside, there goes Yanni in the Apex Academy car.
Yeah, and I think that's been a typical Marceno kind of ruthless move here. He sees Gianni stuck behind Rinne. Rinne with a slow damaged car takes the inside, takes a deep dive, and kind of makes Oskari Rinne having to stuck on the outside. Now into turn one, Jensen against Gianni on the inside, with Rinne defending for dear life with his damaged car on the outside. Jensen against Gianni.
Oh, Benzo's around.
And Benzo's around.
Oh, and cars had to go scrambling to avoid him. We've got a lot of replays that eventually we'll have to take a look at, but you can't take your eyes away from this right now. Yes, it's lap 4 of 22. Yes, they're fighting outside of the top 10, but this is well and truly a brawl with a lot of these drivers realizing this might be the end of their chances. So Benzo lost out as a result of that, but he's not the biggest of the losers. Lemire, Burst, Bennett all retiring from the race. It's been the type of craziness where some have been able to take plenty of advantage. Marceno, Yanni plus 5 and 6 respectively. David Bosga, who we talked about qualifying down in 29th or so positions, is up 11 into 15th.
Yeah, it just shows sometimes you just have to get a clean start, stay out of trouble. That's obviously easier said than done. But these guys do have one drop round. But like you said, it's already the 5th round. So if you had some issues in the series before, maybe had one bad result, you really can't afford to take another drop here. So guys who are all the way stuck down in the middle field, they need to look ahead. They need to make some sort of move in order to really secure a qualifying spot. Because with one round left after this, there's really no way you can go.
The field does get narrowed down, I would think, for that final week. I don't expect to see too many drivers fighting. Rinne still trying to hang on, this time to 11th, as Jensen in the VG Racing Academy car will sweep to the outside. Rinne is going to mic corner him basically there and bully him into conceding position. We will see the elbows come out, that is for sure, when it comes to the Cova Machine's defense. Let's take a look at some of the chaos. There was plenty of it. Turn 1, the Door Esports machine in the middle of it. Bennett gives a bit of a shove to the rear and then a shove to the right quarter panel. That spins him around. The field goes scampering to avoid. Neto Nascimento, Guming Kim go off track as a result of that. But that wasn't the only bit of chaos. Matthias Stokeback had some more drama just after that.
So still looking at the top 4 here, where we show you a bunch of more replays. Nothing really changed as we see Stokeback on the outside going around on the exit of the Mercedes arena. He's currently down in 23rd position. Obviously, that's the exact opposite way. He started in 7th, had such a great start to the race, caught off on the wrong side here, spins the car all the way down to 23rd, and there's really nothing you can do when you're down that far, and it's only half an hour race, so it's not like you can make up half the grid to go back to, let's say, the top 10 even. While the guys ahead are still fighting for positions.
So that's what happened to Laritzin as he tried to work through the chaos, got bundled wide, did maybe take a little bit too much of the apex, if you ask me, asking for a little bit of trouble. Let's see if we can then figure out one more look at what happened to Luke Bennett, and I think that picks up most of the chaos. So it started here, just 3 wide, both trying to get the up and under, aggressive racing. It's sometimes what happens when you're in this pressure cooker of a situation.
Yeah, the track kind of comes in from the left side, so when you're on the left, you kind of have to move right, and when you're caught in the middle, like you said, it's sometimes the worst position you can be. Obviously, Luke Bennett from Australia, maybe there's a bit of net code involved there, since there's obviously guys running from the entire world here. If you look at the standings, 15 drivers who actually make it in, 11 different countries in that, so people from all over the world racing the series right now. Yeah, but you just have to race as smart as you can, but sometimes there's really nothing you can do. The racecraft only gets you that far, and when you're unlucky in a situation like that, sometimes it just means the DNF, and for Bennett, 28th position, he's already conceded this race. It's really looking grim for the championship.
Alexei Nesov has run off track. He's in 25th. We'll see if we can figure out what happened to him. Was told that he had to pay 70 euros for the privilege of racing on a G27. To be fair, we all start somewhere. I started on a G27. There are worse places to start. So we'll pick up the replay. We'll see what happened to the Urano Esports car into the shortcut, overcooks it, overcommits. You can probably put a little bit of that to the unfamiliarity with the equipment he's using.
Yeah, and these guys make it look too easy, honestly. If you look at the guys ahead, the top 4 fighting for the win of the race today, It's very easy if you're in your kind of known surroundings, if you're at home, you're racing in your own rig. No matter what kind of hardware you're using, it's what you are used to. And Lesov, while being a terrific driver, being forced onto an equipment that was kind of the norm a couple of years ago even, it just throws you way out of your comfort zone. And the guys ahead, and especially in the Supercup as well, they make it look so easy, almost like you wouldn't be able to distinguish first from 30th in the grid. But then these kind of small mistakes show you how difficult the car really is to drive. And when you overcook it on the entry, it's certainly possible to spin it into a corner.
I want to ask you, Marius, about the contraction in grid slots that we've had over the last couple of years in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. Started with 40, this year, of course, 35. 2023, we'll see just 30 drivers take to the grid. What does that mean from your perspective? Of course, it's not just the slots getting more valuable. It maybe makes the on-track action a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons for that, but I think that the biggest reason is really we want to show every single driver in the series, obviously on the competition side, so the guys who run for the championship, but also there's a lot of things going on in the mid-pack where there's interesting stories developing with drivers who are not necessarily currently fighting for the championship, and that gets very hard to do when you're 40 drivers, as we see a little mistake here into turn 1 from Kevin Nielsen in third. But like he said, it makes every spot in the series even more valuable, and you can't really even afford to lose a single position because you never know where you're going to really end up, because the championship standings are always going to be close, even if you're in the mid-pack. Obviously, prize money comes into that, so there's a lot of things really you want to consider as a driver.
Some great fighting through the arena as Rene still trying to hold on, but the VG Racing Academy car should be able to get around the outside. Now, does the Irishman Oscar Mangan elect to follow? Not the bravest and smartest place to get the move done. He'll have to tow back into line. Still going is Kova trying to fight back, and you can see just how much time they're losing to Yanni in front of them. Finally, Jensen will get the job done. That will be satisfying. He's got to be careful to get the power down nicely on this run to the back straightaway to build to try and close the 19 in front of him. It'll be Mangan that next tries to work his way past the 12.
Yeah, I can just imagine how Oskari Rinne feels in this situation. There's really nothing you can do, and you see this like happening right now. Oscar Mangan going to the outside here, as Rinne basically has a couple of kilometers left, less than his competitors have in top speed, so the car heavily aero damaged, losing time both on the straights and in the corners, fighting for dear life, and I have to say, he's doing a terrific job at that, as you see them coming out of the last corner, going sideways here, and he's just trying to hang on, but really, there's nothing he can do. And we see further battling going on up front, as it's Kevin Nielsen once again with a mistake out of turn 1.
But it is his teammate Lasse Back that is maybe feeling more pressure than he's done throughout the course of this qualifying series. A good look inside the front end of the Gustavo Aerial full-time esports by TK Entry, that number 2 car, as now Oscar Mangan tries to work his way past Rene. Gustavo Aerial coming off the high of the victory 7 days ago, and I saw the Twitch clip afterwards. It was a very emotional victory. Sits 8th in points right now. There would be no better way to take one step closer to the World Championship than besting the points leader currently in the qualifying standings, as Lasse Back feels the pressure.
And Gustavo especially, he started the qualifying series already with a very competitive car. He's done some great racing, but in the last couple of races he's really looked ahead, and like you said, with a clutch win coming in, really cemented his position to be in the qualifying series. And hailing from Brazil, we know these guys are very emotional about what they do. They have a lot of passion, which you can see, for example, in the Supercup driver Jeff Giassi, who actually now runs the real-life Supercup in Brazil, so he got an opportunity from Porsche Brazil, got invited, and they discovered he's got a lot of talent, but also somebody really easy, really fun to work with. And looking at Gustavo, he's making the Brazilians proud, and he's certainly doing that with his racing. As he goes into turn 1, inside move against Lasse Back, makes it stick, goes far on the outside, and basically avoids Lasse Back coming back from any of this, and that just causes Kevin Nielsen to catch back up.
Another look inside of a Porsche. That was greatly executed by Aerial through the block pass there. Not my cornering like he would in Formula 1, because he cleared himself in that entry phase. Great job there. Now leads Mandanok. 2.1 seconds clears him from Luca Kita behind. The separation to 5th on back has been held. We'll see if it holds a little bit further. For Alexei Nesov, it's more trouble as we take a look at another replay involving him. Looping the rear end, maybe just not getting used to the pedals that he's having to deal with. Now we focus back in on that battle for the lead. The question will be for Lasseback if he's content to settle for second. Given the 5 races, including today, that he's had so far, I would argue it's probably fine to let Ariel grab the couple extra points. Back is comfortable as he sits right now.
Yeah, I think it just looks like he's playing the smart game here. He knows exactly what to do, leading the championship. Like we said before, he's certainly not got his slot locked in already, but if he gets a good result today, he's basically almost there. So he's got a rough 400 points ahead of the cutoff line. If he gets a good result here today, it's all you can do really to make it in. Playing the smart game, nevertheless, you never really know what's going to happen. So I'm sure he's just sticking back, looking at this, but when the time comes, and Arjuna, we're only halfway here, I can't even imagine, he's going to be back in this, no doubt.
These races, the laps tick on by, but these races feel longer than they are sometimes. I remember Watkins Glen last week, maybe partially because I was the only commentator and therefore losing my voice every time I spoke. That felt like an eternity, and I can't imagine what that felt like nerve-wise for some of the drivers. Grabowski, Kim, side by side with Bosca, Nascimento, also dooring each other behind them as they exit their way through the arena. Lauritsen bottled up behind that battle. He runs into the back of the Academy car for Williams. A single file itself, again for the time being. Hyunmin Kim, 14 positions gained. Plenty of these drivers, though, knowing that second split does not pay enough points. One driver that would have been hoping for a little bit more is another driver who's parlayed virtual experience to real-world success. Moritz Lohner has competed in the 2021 DTM Trophy, is doing it again in 2022, but missed the first couple of rounds of the qualifying series, has had some bad luck as well. You can't afford to have both in just 6 races in a series as short as this.
Yeah, Moritz, one of these guys who we consider those hybrid racers. So comes from sim racing, jumped into a real car, got the chance to race a GT4, and then people obviously notice, wow, this guy isn't even bad in a real car. Well, duh, it's kind of the surprise if you have kind of natural talent given to you. You're fast in a sim, you know how to handle a car. It's just a question of time really to get used to real racing, but he's proven himself a couple of times already, and definitely one of these household names in GT4 racing, at least in Germany and Europe right now. But if we look at these times right now, Arjuna, the top guys right at the front of the pack, kind of 1:27 4.5s, and that's the same kind of lap times the guys behind run. So we've looked at a gap of just over 3 seconds between the top 4 and everybody who's following, which is another 4-car train. It's come down all the way to 1.6 seconds. So once you get to that 1 second range, you can talk slipstream, you can talk gaining from the car ahead. So this might not be these 2 kind of 4-car trains, but we might actually see an 8-car train forming, since we're only lap 12 here, and the guys obviously chasing with Luca Kita at the head of the 4-car train in P5, doing a terrific job in the Urano Esports car, chasing the guys ahead, and it just shows you never want to give up. Luca Kita, one of these guys, making it, trying to make it into the series in 11th position right now. So he's got no points to lose here, and he needs to catch these guys up front.
He started the series off really electric, had a bit of bad luck, and now tries to build back up. Andre Melchers, I've seen, went off track. Now Lauritsen. Whoa, wow, this is a mess. This is the Hornet's Nest. Lauritsen outside of Johansson with Damon Woods behind. Not sure what happened. I'm sure it was chaos. Hyunmin Kim got ejected from the track a lap ago. They're going at it again, brawling down into turn number 1. Lauritsen squeeze all the way to the wall. On the anchors as they plunge down the hill. Jerzy Glack in 15th is comfortable. Not so comfortable behind them. Lauritsen almost getting a shove from Damon Woods. They just about survive. These guys have not cleaned it up since the start of this race.
Yeah, and Hyunmin Kim in the 24 car made a mistake into the final corner in the last lap, costing him to lose 5 positions right now. He's been doing an awesome job this race. Started in 29th, made it all the way up to 15th, now down to 21st, and is looking to gain 1 position back, at least from Rachel here, trying to look on the outside, and we know he can make it work. I know him personally from the Hyundai series. He's been an awesome racer and certainly one of the fastest guys in that series, proving himself already here. But now he really needs to get back 5 cars ahead, and I'm sure he's going to beat himself up for that mistake in the final corner.
That was, I don't think, a mistake actually through the final corner, because I went and took a look at it as well. I actually think what happened is he got a slowdown penalty through the chicane. It's so easy to do at this slower chicane if you bounce your way over the curbs. David Bosger maybe thinking about a lunge to the outside on Nascimento. It's a brave place to get that done. Indeed, will slot back into line. While they continue to fight, it's single file still at the front of the field, almost as though they've figured out that it's their intelligence that will get them where they need to get in this race. 1.5, still the gap back to Luca Kita, who's bringing Loner Blainart with him. After Melcher's mistakes, he's dropped to 8th into the clutches of Simona Maria Marcheno. Let's pick up what happened then to Andre Melcher's if we grab a look at the replay very quickly. Oh, he was sideways before even entering that shortcut. It's so easy to get crossed up, but I tell you, it was a good job to save that.
Yeah, excellent job to save it, but looking on board with him right now. So he's actually crossed a little bit over to the left, where you have these rough curbstones like you see them here, and they kind of switch towards the grassy surface really fast. So you do want to brake on the outside like he did, but once you go just a couple of centimeters too far, that's exactly what happens, but very well recovered from him, and he's looking to fight back right now. He's still in 8th position, so still everything into play for him.
That's the replay of the aftermath of the melee through the chicane into turn 1. They just about got it sorted out by the time they entered into the arena. Melcher's with another mistake. These are points that he can't afford to be dropping outside of the cut zone right now. 9th will not be the worst situation, but given he qualified up inside of the front 2 rows, to drop to 9th will be heartbreaking.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and we're looking at this one race here, but you can't really say you only have to finish 15th to make it into the series, because there's obviously a very high chance of a lot of people actually ending up in front of you. So it's not just the same guys who end up in front. Guys like Luke Bennett out for this race, Dylan Verze out for this race, Alexei Nesov, like you mentioned, not racing from home, he's down in 26th. These guys kind of go up and down the order so quickly that you really can't afford to be somewhere in the midfield and try to just kind of sneak your way into the series. You do need these big results, and just like you mentioned, the battle up front isn't really heating up, but I feel like with Luca Kita catching, and he is actually catching by about a 10th a lap on average, so down to 1.4 seconds. As we see another spin on Melchers.
Yeah, Lauritsen got totally just turfed there by Jerzy Glock, and the Apex Academy car of Johansson getting some further contact as again into the chicane. They'll fight too wide. It really has been aggressive. I would not be shocked if Nim Cross's email is full of multiple messages at the conclusion of the cooldown period at the end of this race, but somehow too wide, too deep will work as they fight onto the back straight once again. It's the 29 Triton racing car that's got to watch out as he's forced wide into the grass. It will be Rochelle that has the outside as they work to the chicane.
And just like you mentioned, you can't really, at that point, fault Lauritsen for anything. You just got to tap on the rear as we go 3 wide into the chicane. Johansson in the middle. Kim needs to back out, so Johansson makes 2 positions here. Nascimento down, and then 1 position further down is Kim. And we see a car moving into the pits, and that's Jerzy Glock. And I'm afraid, Arjuna, that could even be for incident points here.
That was my assumption.
Goes for the drive-through.
Yeah, my assumption was incident points. And Kake Oliveira, not sure if that was by himself, but the Oak Racing Team machine looped it by himself on the exit of the chicane. It's been a race of all races back here in the pack, that's for sure. One that plenty of Discords will have fun at. I have no doubt about that. Let's grab a look at what happened then in this fight with the SRC Movano machine and Triton Racing. It was the exit of the chicane, already paint stripped. Lauritsen trying to squeeze. Maybe you could argue that Glock had some overlap, but at that point the corner was lost. I think Lauritsen was right to be able to go for that.
Yeah, and it just gets a little tap on the rear, and you see how easy it is actually to spin these cars with the engine, all the weight being in the rear. Once you kind of lift it up a little bit, it just loses all traction, and I'm afraid Lauritsen at that point, nowhere to go, nothing to do. Takes the spin now, but we've seen before, this race is far from over, even though he has actually parked the car with heavy damage now, so I'm afraid for Alexander Lauritsen it is over right now. One of these guys trying to make it into the series, down in 26th with not a lot of points out of this one.
It's a bit of a shame, that's for sure. Nascimento Johansson again will fight into the chicane. This time it's only 2 wide. Nascimento tried to turn in, but Johansson refused to relinquish. 4 wide on the exit of the chicane. Bosger and Kim come to blows. Nascimento with a penalty coming to pit road. Johansson as well will come to pit lane. My word, it has gone from a boxing match in round one, it's continued to devolve, and as they fight down the main straightaway, look at what happened a lap ago. 3 wide with Nascimento on the inside. It was Kim that got shoved, and behind them, you aren't going to see the majority of the incident. Jersey Glack and Kake Oliveira both being forced to pit road.
And I think we need to explain to maybe some of the new viewers what incident limit, what does that actually mean? And it really comes down to making mistakes on track, crashing into other competitors, spinning the car, going off track. All these will actually award you incident points. And there's a limit of 17 that you can achieve in a race. And on the 17th, you actually get a drive-through penalty, which is, by the way, the same number as in the Supercup, as we see another bunch of incident points being collected here. Stockback Jensen around after the shuffle with Kim.
I apologize, Marius, that the one race that we bring you on for, it might be the most physical of them all, and that's saying something given that we went to Watkins Glen. While they brawl at the back, it is starting to close in. Marius pointed it out, a tenth or so per lap. Luca Kita had brought the gap down for a moment to under 1 second. Now, he is not maybe desperate for the points. However, he is bringing with him Moritz Lohner and Juan Blanart, 2 drivers who very much will be desperate for points.
Yeah, and I'm afraid this is far from over, Arjuna. You said it. It's one of the hectic rounds, one of the most hectic rounds this season, actually. But we've also got 5 laps to go here, so it's far from over, really. And I'm sure we will see further fighting up ahead. Top 7 now almost together, so Kita just needs to close about 9/10 of a gap up to P4. And like you said, Moritz Lohner, the number 1 car, looking for a big score here. And we said it before a couple of laps ago. Ariel now kind of, a bit easy, taking it easy in the front. It doesn't look easy for sure, but Lasseback following, Kevin Nielsen following. All that ends once Kita and Lohner have caught up to that pack, because then these guys actually need to defend their position as hard as they can to score a lot of points coming out of this one.
Where will the opportunities present themselves as the Divina Esports 27 of Neto Nascimento? He's around at turn 1, and I'd assume by the departing Guman Kin from the scene of the crime, potentially contact again between the 2 of them. Plenty of drivers having come down to serve their drive-through penalties, 5 and counting. Alexei Nesov is smiling through it all, is up to 21st position. Another lap ticked away, though, as we'll work to 4 to go. Aerial leads from Lasseback, Kevin Nielsen, Valentin Mandenark, and Luca Kita, the top 5. Moritz Lohner, Juan Blanart still in the hunt, while Simona Maria Marcheno, Andre Melchers, and Michael Yanni make up the rest of the top 10. Sorry, go ahead, Marius.
I mean, this is where it gets interesting, right? So we talked about Buck kind of following, just seeing where this goes. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, okay, Kevin Nielsen behind me, maybe a bit safer than you'd think, but then Nielsen has Mandanach behind him, Mandanach has Kita behind him, and on it goes. So it's not like Lasseback can really relax here and just count on everybody behind him being nice. Once these guys actually see an opportunity, once even Buck makes a mistake, they will be right there. And the same obviously goes for our race leader Gustavo Ariel, who is once again doing an excellent job here, defending and just managing the race from up front with incredibly consistent lap times. He's going to be asking himself the same thing. What happens behind me? Is it actually going to benefit me, or is it all going to come down right behind me and these guys suddenly all want my first position?
It's tense, and while the format for the race is not the same as the World Championship, I think the mental stress very much is in a similar situation, even though there's a long way to go before these guys are allowed to say they are World Championship competitors as we build to the start of the 2023 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup. 3 to go this time. The gap between Kita and Mandanach still hovering at about 9/10, 8/10 of a second. Kita, despite thinking maybe that once he got within drafting range it would be easier to close up, is finding it difficult to stay in that same train of being able to close a 10th here every single lap.
And the distance being run here, we have to point that out, is actually the same, roughly, as the main race distance in the Super Cup. Only difference, like you pointed out, no sprint race here, no invert. So these guys are effectively running one main race. And Arjuna, can you imagine, I mean, going into another race now after doing this? I mean, it's basically all the same thing over again. And you come from the sprint race, had a race like this, and you get it all once more.
And next time up is Imola, and the only regular layout. However, having said that, the reality of the situation is that with the anti-cut curves and the nature of the off-track system there, it is not going to be an easy race by any means, despite being the one that drivers will have had the most prior knowledge that they can carry forward into their preparations. Still aerial lead, able to break away a couple of car lengths as they work down the back straightaway, looking very comfortable. Is Ariel as he looks to go 2 in a row in this qualifying series. Luca Kita, I think at this point with 2 laps to go, will be unable to make anything happen for himself as we wind down the laps.
21st lap, ticking in, 2 to go. So we're almost at the finish line, but we're far from finished. I'm sure of that. Ariel leads back, leads Nielsen, and Luca Kita still pushing as hard as he can down to 8/10. And this is exactly, Arjuna, where the slipstream comes into play. He's just got a little bit more speed at the end of the main straight here as it goes into turn 1. And he's really looking to make that happen. And I'm sure Moritz Löhner is just hanging on behind him. He knows, okay, maybe I can't really do anything here. I have to wait for a mistake from either Kita or have to kind of push him all the way I can to the front for Kita to actually make something happen and benefit from it. And I'm sure we talked about it before. Moritz has all that planned out in his head, so he's just looking up ahead. But, I mean, Kita isn't right there. So he's still 8/10 off, and we have 1 more lap to go after this. So if there's something that happens, right now he can't instantaneously make hay of it. He needs to catch up a little bit further than this.
Yeah, I think at this point, the question will be, to back and Nielsen feel the need to push Ariel. I think Mandenak is comfortable in 4th. Where he sits in points, there's no need to force the issue. There's no need to put yourself in any sort of danger. And of course, Nielsen back for Fiery Simsport running 1 and 2 in points. They'll be delighted to gather 2nd and 3rd. As they wind to the final lap of the race, they fly over the bumps of the chicane for the penultimate time. Luca Kita is still 6/10 off the back of Valentin Mandenak. The charge came a couple of laps too late, but 1 more trip around. Gustavo Ariel has to fend off Lasse Bak and Kevin Nielsen as they hunt for the lead.
You said it, Kevin Nielsen, Lasse Bak and Valentin Mandenak, your top 3 in the championship right now. They're all in the top 4 right now, so another set of big points for them. The only guy who isn't all the way up there, Gustavo Ariel, will make a huge leap winning this race here today, if he can do that, because he's currently down in 8th position. And then if we look at Luca Kita, also he's in 11th position. So the top 5 here will actually do a very serious job towards getting a spot for the series, making a lot of points today and actually working towards qualifying. Moritz Löhner, I'm sure he's going to be a bit disappointed here, but again, he came from 12th position, so I'm not sure if he's actually going to be disappointed about the race result, but he might actually be looking at his qualifying and thinking, what could have been if I would have qualified further ahead?
What could have been, because I think he came into this race maybe on the down about his qualifying chances. One Blainart with a mistake in the Rincon Racing number 22 drops off the back. If there's any shenanigans, any shambles of mistakes through this final sequence of corners, Blainart maybe not able to pick up the pieces. But 1 more step to the World Championship for several drivers. For Lasse Bak, Kevin Nielsen and Valentin Mandenak, the metronomic consistency sees them just 1 race away from Porsche contender status. For Gustavo Ariel, delight 7 days ago, delight 7 days on, back-to-back victories for the Brazilian. Gustavo Ariel roars in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup qualifying series.
And he is absolutely over the moon. 400 guys watching him on Twitch right now. He is absolutely losing it. Like I said before, these guys are very passionate about racing, and you just see how much it actually means for him to get the win here today. Over the moon, Gustavo Ariel. We have to say, excellent job done by him. Started in 3rd, made up the positions with Bak in 2nd. Smart race from him, getting a lot of points and effectively securing him and Kevin Nielsen the spot in the series.
We'll leave the math until 7 days from today, because I don't trust myself and I don't want to put unrealistic expectations forward, but what a day it will be for several drivers with just 1 final race to go before they can focus on the future and the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series, just the next rung on the road to the World Championship. Good result, of course, for Moritz Löhner, up 6 positions. Michael Yanni also up 6 positions for him. Marceno working his way into the top 10. The type of day that you either survived or your temper boiled over. We saw plenty of contact, plenty of arguing down through the mid-pack.
Yeah, so our idea is we get together here for half an hour, have a little bit of a chat, maybe talk Supercup a little bit.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, we talk commentators curse when it comes down to the drivers, but I think it just applies to us as well.
Hey, I'm not complaining. I would have loved to talk more about the Super Cup, but what a race we had.
Honestly, one of the best races I've seen all season, and it just it really makes me want the Contender Series to arrive right when the series ends. But we have a couple of weeks break, and maybe we talk about the calendar just a little bit. So obviously next round, the finale, Imola, on the 27th of August, and then it's 3 weeks of a break. We kind of get everybody into the series. It becomes serious at that point, get everybody invited, onboarded, really make them feel like this is now starting to become a really big thing. And on the 24th of September, we kick it off and we go back straight to Hockenheim, and more specifically, the National A version of Hockenheim. And we had a chat about this earlier. We actually do go back to the same tracks and same configs for the Contender Series. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic where these guys who qualified in fresh this season have all done this once, at least for 30 minutes in the race. I mean, that's certainly a lot of practice. But the guys who come back from last year's Super Cup, remember, P16 to P30, actually have to re-qualify. They haven't had the chance to get any factual racing experience this season. So they come onto tracks which they know in their long versions, and it's all going to be a little bit different. So it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm really excited to see these terrific drivers from last season fight and just battle it out against these newcomers from this year. And with an age of, I think the average is somewhat around 17, 18. These guys incredibly young, incredibly talented. We talked about guys like Charlie Collins last year. His brother Bryn, below 18 years, in second split, makes it in. It all comes down to that, Arjuna, and I think that's just terrific. And I'm really excited to see the Contender Series.
I'm glad that we got the passion for this qualifying series from you, because for 4 races it's been somewhat interesting. I don't think we've had a race as good as today. I'm glad that you're as hyped up as I am, because that Contender Series will be a treat on the iRacing Esports Network. It is Gustavo Ariel, 2-time race winner now, and what a couple of weeks it has been. Can he keep it running 7 days from today at Imola and make it 3 in a row? We'll find out on RaceSpotTV. Lasse back, Kevin Nielsen for Fire Sim Sport take one more step on the road to World Championships, sit second and third, while Valentin Mandanok right behind them in the Roman Grosjean Esports number 6. Luca Kita was able to catch but not able to pass in the number 8 Urano Esports car to finish the top 5. Loner, Blainart, Marceno, Melchers, Yanni, the top 10, plenty of those 5. Working their way up 6 positions to squeak their way into the points. Matthias Jensen, Oscar Mang and Camille Grabowski 11th through 13th, with Ascari Rene's battered, damaged and beaten Kova number 12 crossing the line down in 14th. The Door Esports number 28 15th, with the Vendaval 13th behind. Bosga, Oliveira, Benso, Glack complete the top 20. Bookending the field, Alexei Nesov able to get up into 21st. Was it worth the 70-odd euros he had to spend? Well, we'll have to ask him. Mads Johansson, Gunmin Kim, 22nd and 23rd. Matthias Stokeback, Neto Nascimento, Jeremy Lemire, 1 lap down before the 3 retirements. Alexander Luritzen, Dylan Burst, and Luke Bennett for Team Redline, rounding out the field of 29 that took to the green flag. Delighted for the first time this season to actually have someone to talk to post-race, as the Fire Sim Sport driver of Lasse back joins us. Lasse, what a ride it's been these last 5 weeks for you. Put it on pole to start off the qualifying series, but then lost the lead into turn 1. You've had a consistent run since then, another pole position to add to the tally. You're looking good to make it to the Contender Series in just a month's time.
Thank you. Honestly, it's a little bit above my expectations I had going into the PESC qualifying. But yeah, super happy to be P1 right now in the standings. I didn't really think that was possible, but I guess the hard work paid off. I did a lot of testing in the Porsche Cup with Kevin Nielsen also, which has been amazing. He's been really good to kind of spar with, as you can say. So we have just been like pushing each other like a lot. So it's been great so far.
And, you know, for Fire Sim Sport, a relatively new team, how does it feel to have not just you and Kevin, but both in this situation where you got one more race to survive and then one more step on the road to the World Championship?
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. I think the pressure is like kind of like actually going into this round. I didn't feel so much pressure because I was always like the #1 spot, but the pressure has definitely gotten a little bit less now. But it's gonna be exciting to go into the contender series right now. I think we can safely say that I'm in. I think Kevin is also gonna make it, but yeah, it's definitely gonna be exciting to see where we are in the contender series.
And of course, for the Contender Series, you'll have the same layouts of the tracks that we've used so far in this qualifying series. I want to get your thoughts on what it's done to change the racing, because a lot of these tracks you've visited before, but the Nürburgring, you're not used to the shortened layout, you're used to the Grand Prix loop. What's it been like as you've navigated your way through a rather different style of race?
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. Some tracks have been like easy to overtake on. For example, like Watkins, there was a lot of racing. It was really fun also. But then you have like Nürburgring, which is really difficult to overtake on. It's only like in turn 1 you can make a move if you get a run down the straight. But yeah, I think it's a nice concept with the short tracks. I kind of like it. I think it's a good idea.
Glad to hear it. He'll have to now contend with the different challenge that is the slightly different race format. Lasse back one step closer to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Marius, you mentioned it just before we took a look at the results. I'd like you to mention the dates again. Of course, one more week of this Supercup qualifying series, and then the same layouts of the tracks in the same order will take place for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series live on the iRacing Esports Network. They get a couple of weeks off. When does the series get underway?
Yeah, it all starts over again, just the stakes are going to be a little bit higher when we go back into racing. So we have one more round to come here, as you see on screen, August 27th. We wrap up the qualifying series, and then the best 15 drivers from the qualifying series meet P16 to P30 from last year's Super Cup, form a new grid of 30 new contenders in the Contender Series, which kicks off on 24th of September. And then we do it all again, Arjuna. We go back to Hockenheim, we go back to Silverstone, Red Bull Ring National, Watkins Glen Classic, and wrap it up with Nürburgring and Imola. Just as the first week of November, the last round here, and then they all get their well-deserved winter break. We do a bunch of media activities, get these guys all hyped up for the series, and maybe that's just one date you want to put into your calendar. 4th of February is the date you want to look out for the start of the 2023 Porsche Esports Super Cup.
I love it. Exclusives here on RaceSpotTV. That's why we bring on Big Boss Marius to join us. Before we say goodbye, of course, let's talk about next week. For some of these drivers, it is Last Chance Saloon, and there is maybe no more terrifying a place to go to with that sort of desperation on the line than Imola and the tight confines of a very technical track, a track where you cannot take liberties with track limits, not just because of anti-cut curbs, Marius, because of the incident limit as well.
Yeah, we talked about it. I mean, it always looks very easy. We've seen these 4 guys up front. They've all had it figured out. It can all go wrong in a heartbeat. We've seen it with Alexei Nesov, just one little mistake on an entry. We've seen it with a bunch of guys just really putting one foot wrong, and it's all that it takes. And you see on the previous screenshot here, there's not a whole lot of runoff. We know especially the last 2 corners are notorious for just locking up the inside wheel. In these cars, it can be absolutely crucial to get the braking right. You run off into the gravel, next is a long straight, and you'll be down a couple of positions right away. Slowdowns, off tracks, not even to speak of those. I'm really excited to see the first full-length track with Imola being the last round of the qualifying series, again featured in the Contender Series. One of the races, we both see the Carrera Cup in real life. From Italy, we see the Super Cup run there. They've always had interesting, very interesting and exciting races. I'm sure it's not going to be different here, but I'm very excited to see the guys, how they actually transfer, and especially when it comes down to really making it into the series. So we're talking 15th spot here. I'm sure some of these guys just need one big round, one final step here to really make it work in qualifying.
Same time, same place, next Saturday live on RaceSpotTV at 6:45 p.m. UTC. Join us for the final round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup qualifying series. I'll be back, Arjuna Kankipati, alongside the voice of the Esports Supercup, Paul Smith, but delighted today to have had Marius Gollenbeck, Program Manager for Porsche Esports, to be along for the ride, and what a ride it was. What a crazy day for so many, but Gustavo Ariel emerges from the chaos victorious for the 2nd week in a row. On behalf of the team of RaceSpotTV, thank you so much for your company this Saturday afternoon. We'll see you next week to close off round 1 of the Road to the World Championship, where 15 will rise as contenders. We'll see you from Imola.